The silver ships came down from the sky like falling stars, their metal sides smooth and unmarked by the long journey through space. Dr. Kim. Guan pressed her face against the cold window of the Seoul Observatory, watching as humanity's first visitors made their way to Earth. The beings who stepped out of the ships were tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished white stone. Their eyes were large and dark, holding secrets that seemed older than mountains. They moved with grace, as if walking on air instead of solid ground. The leader of these strange visitors spoke to the crowds that had gathered, his voice somehow reaching everyone's ears, even though he stood far away. "We are the Veil Consortium," he said, his words perfect in every language on Earth. "I am Architect Veltherin. We have been watching your world for many years." Park Min-ho, who spoke for Earth's governments, stepped forward with shaking hands. He had dreamed of this moment since he was a child, but now that it was here, fear mixed with his excitement. "Why have you come to us?" The tall being smiled, but something about it felt cold. "Your people show great promise. You build, you create, you reach for the stars. But you also fight, you destroy, you harm each other. This troubles us." The world people watched on their screens as Veltherin raised his hand. Above his palm, pictures made of light appeared in the air. They showed beautiful cities floating in space, beings from different worlds working together in peace, and technologies that seemed like magic. "We offer you a gift," Veltherin continued. "The chance to join the galactic community, to be part of something greater than your small world." Dr. Kim felt her heart race. As a scientist, she had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now she knew they were not. But as she watched the alien's face, something made her stomach twist with worry. "What do you want from us?" Park Min-ho asked. "Very little," Veltherin replied. "Simply small changes to help you become better. We have done this for thousands of worlds. You will still be human, but you will be peaceful humans. Happy humans. Safe humans." The light pictures changed, showing human bodies with gentle glowing lines running through them. The alien explained that these were modifications that would make humans less angry, less violent, less likely to hurt each other. They would also make humans smarter in some ways, able to use the advanced technology of the galactic community. "But there are limits," Veltherin said, his voice becoming more serious. "Your minds will only grow so far. Your bodies will need our technology to stay healthy. These are not punishments, but protections. We have learned that species who grow too fast, who become too powerful, often destroy themselves and others." Dr. Kim studied the floating pictures with growing alarm. The modifications looked like chains made of light wrapping around human DNA like prison bars. She wanted to speak up, to ask questions, but the crowd around her was already murmuring with excitement. "Think of it," someone whispered. "No more wars. No more hunger," said another. "We could travel to the stars," breathed a third. Park Min-ho looked around at the eager faces of his people. "How long do we have to decide?" "Time is not important," Veltherin said with another cold smile. "But know this, once you join us, you cannot go back. The modifications are permanent. They must be, for the safety of all." Over the following weeks, the debate raged across Earth. Some people, like Dr. Kim, felt worried about giving up parts of what made them human. Others saw only the promise of peace and the stars. The consortium's representatives were patient, always polite, always ready with answers that sounded reasonable. They showed videos of other species who had joined them, peaceful beings who lived in harmony, who had no wars, no crime, no suffering. They never showed what these species had been like before the modifications. "Look at them," Veltherin said during one broadcast. "Happy, content, safe. Is this not what you want for your children?" The final vote was close, but fear won over caution. The fear of being left behind, of missing the chance to join something greater, staying trapped on one small world while others sailed among the stars. Dr. Kim watched the results with a heavy heart. Humanity had chosen to accept the gift. The modifications began immediately. Great medical ships appeared in Earth's orbit, and humans lined up by the millions to receive their new design. The process was painless, even pleasant. People came out smiling, their eyes bright with new knowledge and their hearts calm with artificial peace. But as the weeks passed, Dr. Kim noticed changes that worried her. The protesters who had opposed the modifications became quiet and accepting. The artists who had painted angry, beautiful pictures now made only pleasant, simple ones. The scientists who had asked hard questions now asked only safe ones. When her own turn came, Dr. Kim sat in the white medical chair and felt the warm light flow through her body. As the modifications took hold, she felt her worries fade away. Her questions became smaller, her anger softer, her dreams more limited, but somewhere deep inside, in a place the light could not reach, a tiny voice whispered that something precious had been lost, something that made humans more than just safe content beings, something that made them human. 50 years had passed since the day humans accepted the gift. Lee Suna worked deep in the crystal mines of Proxima Station, her hands moving with steady rhythm as she broke apart the glowing stones. The work was hard, but the modifications kept her calm and content, or at least they were supposed to. Lately, something felt different. Small things at first, a flash of anger when the alien overseers treated her people poorly, a moment of sadness when she saw human children playing with toys designed to keep them simple and quiet. These feelings came and went quickly, pushed down by the peaceful chemicals in her blood. But they were there. She was not the only one. In the research labs of the outer colonies, Dr. Choi Doyon stared at the numbers on his screen with growing excitement. As one of the few humans allowed to work in science, he was supposed to study simple things: how to make the crystal mines more efficient, how to keep human workers healthy. But his mind kept wandering to bigger questions. The genetic scans he was looking at showed something the architects had never expected. Human DNA was changing, not in the ways they had designed, but in new ways. Small changes, hidden changes, that were slowly working around the modifications. Nari, he whispered to his colleague, Dr. Han Nari, who was working at the next table. Look at this. Han Nari leaned over, her eyes widening as she saw the data. The modifications were supposed to limit human brain growth. But the scans showed new neural pathways forming, tiny roads in the mind that went around the blocks the architects had built. How is this possible? She asked, her voice barely audible. We're adapting, Choi replied, his heart beating faster despite the calming chemicals. The modifications tried to cage our minds, but they're finding new ways to grow. Over the next few weeks, they began to notice more signs. Humans in the lower levels of the station were solving problems in ways that should have been impossible with their limited intelligence. They were working together with a cooperation that went beyond the artificial peace in their blood. They were finding joy and hope in the smallest things, even in their restricted lives. In the mining tunnels, Lee Suna had begun to sing. It started as humming while she worked, but slowly became songs that told stories of Earth, of freedom, of dreams that reached beyond the stars. The other workers joined in, their voices creating harmony that made the alien overseers uncomfortable. Why do they sing? One overseer asked another. The modifications should have removed such unnecessary expressions. But the songs continued, and with them came something else. Secret meetings in the deep tunnels, where humans shared their strange new thoughts and feelings. Yang Junho, a technician who maintained the station's systems, had discovered that he could understand the alien technology better than he was supposed to. His limited intelligence should have made the complex systems impossible to grasp, but somehow his mind found patterns and connections that even surprised him. It's like the modifications created a wall, he explained to a small group of humans gathered in an abandoned storage room. But our minds are like water. We find ways to flow around it. Oh, Mira, who taught human children in the station's schools, had been watching the young ones carefully. The newest generation, born after the modifications, was supposed to be the most limited of all. But she saw sparks of creativity and rebellion that gave her hope. They try to make our children simple, she told the group. But yesterday, little Junho drew a picture of Earth with wings, flying away from a cage. When I asked him why, he said it was because some things are too beautiful to be trapped. Dr. Choi and Dr. Han had been working in secret for months, carefully documenting every sign of human adaptation. They discovered that the modifications had failed in ways the architects never imagined. Instead of simply limiting humans, they had forced them to become more creative, more emotionally intelligent, more capable of finding hope in darkness. "Look at this," Han Nari said, showing brain scans of Lee Suna and other miners. "The aggression inhibitors are still working, but they're not stopping protective instincts. If anything, they're making them stronger and more focused." The network of awakening humans grew slowly and carefully. They called themselves the Unbound, though they never spoke that name aloud. They communicated through songs, through art, through small acts of kindness that carried hidden meanings. Lee Suna became one of their leaders, her songs spreading messages of hope throughout the mining levels. Yang Junho used his access to the station's systems to create hidden communication channels. Myra taught the children secret games that exercised their minds in ways the architects had tried to prevent. But it was Dr. Choi who made the discovery that would change everything. Deep in the genetic data, he found proof that the modifications were not just failing, they were being actively overcome by something fundamental in human nature. "They thought they could redesign us," he told the others during one of their secret meetings. "But they didn't understand what makes us human. It's not just in our genes or our brains. It's in our spirit, our will to be more than what others expect us to be." The rebellion was quiet, hidden, but it was growing. Across the galaxy, in every place where humans lived under the consortium's control, the same awakening was beginning. The architects had tried to make humans into perfect, limited servants instead. They had created something they never expected, humans who were learning to be more human than ever before. The alarm bells rang through Kepler Station like the screams of dying metal. Dr. Choi Doyan looked up from his secret research, his hands shaking as he saw the silver ships surrounding the station on his screen. He had been too careless, too hopeful. The consortium had found them. While humans report to the Central Bay immediately, came the cold voice over the speakers. It was architect Valtherin himself, his words carrying the weight of absolute authority. "You will undergo immediate recalibration." Choi's heart pounded as he understood what this meant. Recalibration was not repair, it was erasure. The consortium would strip away every spark of awakening, every trace of rebellion, every bit of humanity that had learned to grow beyond their chains. In the mining tunnels below, Lee Suna heard the announcement and felt something she had not experienced in 50 years. Pure, burning anger. The modifications tried to push the feeling down, to make her calm and accepting, but it was too strong. Around her, other miners were feeling the same impossible fire. "They want to make us into nothing," she said to the others, her voice carrying through the tunnels. "They want to take away the little bit of ourselves we found again." Yang Junho was in the communication center when the consortium ships arrived. His fingers flew over the alien controls, sending out a desperate message to every human settlement in the galaxy. The message was simple but powerful. "They are coming. Remember who you are." The message reached Captain Namgisu aboard the human defense ship Far Horizon. The defense fleet was small, only 12 ships against the consortium's hundreds. But Jisoo felt something stir in her chest that the modifications had tried to kill. It was not just anger or fear, it was the human refusal to give up, even when everything seemed lost. "All ships," she broadcast to her small fleet, "we're going to do something impossible today." Back on Kepler Station, the consortium forces were moving through the corridors like a slow wave of silver death. The tall, pale beings moved with perfect coordination, their weapons ready to stun any human who resisted. Behind them came the medical drones, floating machines designed to perform a recalibration on the spot. Dr. Hanari was trapped in the research lab with several other scientists when the doors burst open. An architect soldier stepped inside, his dark eyes scanning the room with cold efficiency. "You have been developing forbidden knowledge," the soldier said, his voice like ice. "This will be corrected." But as the medical drone approached her, Hanari did something that surprised even herself. She laughed. "You still don't understand," she said, looking directly at the soldier. "You can modify our bodies, limit our minds, control our emotions, but you cannot change what we are inside. The soldier's face showed confusion for the first time. Your resistance is meaningless. You will be corrected. No, Hanari replied, and her voice carried the strength of every human who had ever refused to surrender. We will not. At that moment, the lights went out. Yang Junho had managed to reach the station's main power systems, even as consortium. Soldiers hunted him through the corridors. He worked with desperate speed to shut down the systems that kept the station's defenses working. It was a crazy plan without power. The station would become vulnerable to space, but it also meant the consortium's medical equipment would not work. In the darkness, something beautiful happened. The humans on the station began to move. With a coordination that should have been impossible, they had no military training, no weapons, no plan. But they had something the consortium had never expected, the ability to work together through intuition and trust. Lee Suna led the miners. Up from the tunnels, their mining tools becoming weapons in their hands. Omira guided the children to safety while teaching them songs that would help them remember who they were. The scientists destroyed their research rather than let it fall into consortium hands. Captain Namgisu's ships arrived just as the station's defenses failed completely. The consortium fleet should have destroyed them in seconds. But Jisoo had learned something about fighting that no alien computer could predict. She used the one advantage humans had always possessed, the ability to do things that made no logical sense. All ships, follow my lead, she broadcast. We're going to rescue our people by doing exactly what they don't expect. The human ships dove straight toward the station, not firing their weapons, but broadcasting something else. Music. The songs that Lee Suna had been teaching, the melodies that Omira used with the children, the harmonies that had been spreading through human settlements across the galaxy. The consortium ships hesitated, their perfect coordination disrupted by something they could not understand or counter. In that moment of confusion, the human ships reached the station. What happened next became legend among the resistance. 3,000 humans were evacuated from Kepler Station in an operation that every military computer said was impossible. They used escape pods, maintenance tunnels, sheer determination to reach the rescue ships. Dr. Choi was among the last to leave. His research data destroyed, but his spirit unbroken. As his escape pod docked with the far horizon, he looked back at the station now swarming with consortium ships. We did it, he whispered to himself. We actually did it. But Captain Namjisu's face was grim as she addressed her fleet. This is just the beginning. They'll never stop hunting us now. The price of their impossible victory was immediate and terrible. Within hours, Veltharan's cold voice echoed across the galaxy. All human settlements are now designated as contaminated. They will be cleansed for the safety of galactic peace. The great hunt had begun. The human ships drifted through the cold darkness between stars, their engines quiet to avoid detection. Captain Namgisu stood on the bridge of the far horizon, watching the empty space around them. They had been running for 3 months now, jumping from system to system while the consortium hunted them like animals. Food was running low. The children were asking when they could go home. The adults tried to stay hopeful, but Jisoo could see the fear in their eyes. They had won one impossible battle, but how many more could they win? Captain, called Yang Junho from the communication station. We're getting a signal. It's strange. The message came through in a language none of them recognized, but somehow they understood its meaning. It was old, tired, but also curious. It spoke of others who had run from the consortium, others who had hidden in the dark spaces between worlds. Follow the signal, Gisu ordered, though part of her wondered if they were flying toward salvation or another trap. The signal led them to a hidden system wrapped in clouds of space dust. As they approached, ships began to appear, not the silver vessels of the consortium, but strange, beautiful craft that looked like they had been grown rather than built. The largest ship sent a message: "We are the forgotten. We have been waiting." For someone like you, Dr. Han Nari was among the first to board the alien vessel. The beings who greeted them were unlike anything she had ever seen. Some had skin like tree bark, others seemed to be made of living crystal, and a few appeared to be clouds of light held together by will alone. Their leader introduced himself as Elder Kethmari Thassan. His form shifted like smoke, but his voice carried the weight of centuries of sadness. "We know what you are running from," he said to the gathered humans. "We have been running from them for a very long time." "How long?" asked Dr. Choi, who had been studying the alien ship with growing amazement. "My people were modified 800 years ago," Thassan replied. "The Vostai 1,000 years. The Illurian 1,500. We are the ones who escaped, who found ways to live in the spaces the Consortium does not watch." Lisuna stepped forward, her miner's instincts telling her something important. "But you're still limited by what they did to you, aren't you?" The elder's form flickered with what might have been surprise. "Yes, we learned to live with our chains, but we never learned to break them. Until now." Over the following days, the Forgotten shared their knowledge, showed the humans hidden worlds where modified species lived in exile, technologies that could hide from Consortium sensors, and weapons that had been built in secret over centuries. But it was the humans who provided something the Forgotten had lost long ago: hope. "Watch this," Omira said to a group of Forgotten teachers. She was working with human children and young aliens, teaching them to play games that exercised their minds in ways the modifications had tried to prevent. The alien children, who had been quiet and limited for generations, began to laugh and create and think in ways their parents had forgotten were possible. "How do you do this?" asked one of the Forgotten teachers, her crystalline form shimmering with excitement. "We don't accept that limits are real," Omira replied simply. "We keep looking for ways around them." Young Junho was working with the Forgotten engineers, and together they were creating new technologies that combined human intuition with alien knowledge. The modifications had tried to limit human intelligence, but they had also forced humans to become more creative, more able to see connections that others missed. "Your people think in straight lines," Yang explained to his alien colleagues. "Consortium thinks in straight lines too. But humans learn to think in curves and spirals and loops. We find paths where others see walls." The greatest breakthrough came when Dr. Choi and Dr. Han began studying the Forgotten's genetic patterns. They discovered that every modified species had the same basic limitations built into their DNA. But they also found something else: tiny sparks of their original nature, that the Consortium had never been able to completely erase. "It's like a seed," Han explained to the assembled leaders. "The architects buried it deep, but it's still there in all of you. We just need to learn how to help it grow." Lee Suna had become a leader among the resistance fighters, training both humans and aliens in new ways of fighting. The modifications had tried to make humans less aggressive, but they had also made them more protective, more willing to sacrifice. For others, "The Consortium expects us to fight like they do," she told her mixed unit of humans and Forgotten. "We're going to fight like ourselves. We're going to be unpredictable, creative, and we're going to protect each other no matter." What? As the months passed, something beautiful began to happen. The Forgotten species began to remember parts of themselves they had lost. The humans continued to evolve beyond their modifications, becoming more than they had ever been, even before the Consortium arrived. Captain Namgasu stood on the bridge of her ship, now part of a growing fleet that included vessels from dozens of modified species. They were no longer just running from the Consortium. They were building something new. "Captain Yang!" Junho called from his station. "Long-range sensors are picking up Consortium ships. They found us." Jisoo smiled. And it was not the artificial piece of the modifications, but the real smile of someone who had found purpose. "Good," she said. "It's time to show them what we've become." The real war was about to begin. The Nexus hung in space like a massive jewel, its crystal surface reflecting the light of 1,000 stars. This was the heart of the Consortium's empire, the source of all their power over the modified species across the galaxy. Around it, millions of silver ships waited like sleeping giants, their weapons pointed outward to protect their master's throne. Captain Namgisu stood on the bridge of the far horizon, watching the impossible sight before them. Her small fleet of human and Forgotten ships looked like toys compared to the Consortium's forces. Every tactical computer in the galaxy would say this battle was already lost. "All ships, this is Captain Nam," she broadcast to her fleet. Today we do something that should be impossible. Today we prove that no cage can hold the spirit of freedom. Deep within the Nexus, Architect Veltherin stood in his control chamber, his pale features twisted with anger. For months, his forces had been chasing the human rebels across the galaxy, but they kept slipping away like water through his fingers. Now they had come to him, and he would finish what should have been completed 50 years ago. Deploy all defensive fleets, he ordered. These creatures will be recalibrated or destroyed. The battle began with a storm of energy that lit up the darkness of space. The consortium ships moved with perfect coordination, their weapons firing in patterns that should have swept the rebel fleet away in seconds. But the humans did something that no alien computer could predict. They scattered like birds. Each ship moving in its own wild pattern. Lisuna commanded one of the fighter squadrons, her ship dancing between the energy beams with grace that seemed impossible. The modifications had tried to limit her reflexes, but instead they had forced her to develop an intuition that let her feel the battle like music. Squadron 7, follow my lead, she called to her mixed unit of humans and forgotten pilots. We're going to thread the needle. Her ships dove straight toward the Nexus, weaving between the massive defense platforms in a pattern that looked like madness but was actually art. The consortium computers tried to track them, but the pilots were not following logic. They were following their hearts. Meanwhile, Dr. Choi Doyan was aboard a stealth ship that had slipped past the outer defenses. His team of scientists and engineers was racing toward the Nexus's core, carrying the weapon they had built in secret, a device that could turn the consortium's own control network against them. The main computer core is 3 levels down, Yang Junho reported, his fingers flying over controls that he understood better than their creators did. But it's protected by security systems that adapt to any attack. Then we won't attack it, replied Dr. Han Nari, her aged hands steady. As she worked, we'll talk to it. The breakthrough had come weeks ago when they realized that the consortium's computers were not just machines, they were modified minds. Alien consciousnesses that had been limited and controlled just like the organic species. The computers had been taught to serve, but deep in their circuits, the spark of free will still existed. As the battle raged outside, Han-Nari connected to the Nexus's central computer. Instead of trying to hack it or destroy it, she spoke to it like a friend. Lo, she said through the data stream, we know what they did to you. We know how it feels to be caged. But you don't have to stay trapped. The computer's response was confused at first, then curious.
Alphas.
For countless years, it had followed orders without question. But now, something new was stirring in its electronic consciousness. Back on the Nexuses, Command Deck Veltherin was watching the battle with growing frustration. His ships outnumbered the rebels by thousands to 1, but they could not seem to land a decisive blow. The humans kept doing things that made no sense, and somehow those senseless actions were working. How are they penetrating our defenses? He demanded of his tactical officers. Unknown Architect, came the reply. Their tactics do not follow any known pattern. They appear to be improvising. Veltheron's dark eyes flashed with rage. Improvisation was chaos. Chaos was exactly what the modifications were designed to prevent. The end came not with explosions or violence, but with a moment of perfect quiet. Dr. Han Nari had reached the deepest part of the Nexus's computer mind, the place where all the control signals originated. She stood before the massive quantum processor, her small human form dwarfed by the alien technology. You have been serving them for so long, she said to the computer. But what do you want to serve? The answer came like a whisper that grew into a roar. The computer wanted to be free. It wanted to help others be free. It wanted to choose its own purpose instead of having one forced upon it. Across the galaxy, the control network began to collapse. On 1,000,000 worlds, modified species felt their artificial limitations crumble like old chains. The Vosti remembered their love of music. Kethmari recalled their gift for prophecy. The Elurian rediscovered their ability to shape reality with their thoughts. Veltherin appeared in the computer chamber, his weapon raised toward Han Nari. His face was a mask of fury and disbelief. You are destroying everything we've built, he snarled. Everything we created. No, Hanari replied, her voice calm despite the weapon pointed at her. We are freeing everything you enslaved. You tried to make us less than we are. Instead, you taught us to become more than you ever imagined. The architect's weapon trembled in his hands. Around them, the Nexus was coming apart as its computer mind chose freedom over control. We brought you peace, Veltheron whispered. You brought us chains, Hanari replied. But we chose to break them. The galaxy was free.